again, Lou Hamilton here from Audible Elegance in Cincinnati, Ohio. We're just located a couple of doors north of the Montgomery Inn, across the street from Montgomery Cyclery if you're into bikes. Tonight I want to talk about vacuum tubes, and not the new stuff. Rogue makes absolutely wonderful and very affordable vacuum tube equipment. You're not having to decide between a college education for your child and a vacuum tube amplifier, it's that. But one of the horrors that I'm watching on the market right now is the ungodly amount of money people are willing to pay for very old and used vacuum tube equipment. I don't care whether it's Dynaco, it can be Audio Research, the list is infinite. Some people find old Fisher vacuum tube receivers and these sort of things. And the money that people are asking for them is nothing short of obscene. You're talking equipment that is so far out of spec. The very early stuff, let's say from the 50s and 60s, used carbon film resistors. Those are shot. They're not, you put a multimeter on them, they wouldn't even spec to the value that's on the stripes. And that's to say nothing about what's going on with rectifiers, or if there's a rectifier tube in there, God help you. And the controls and everything else, they're a mess. And I'm bringing this up because I know a number of manufacturers that I talk to, when people buy one of these, ancient products, stuff built by the 70s and 80s by Audio Research, they don't want to see this stuff. They really don't. Because they don't have the parts to properly repair them, and the people who bought them aren't willing to spend the money to get them updated to what they need to be. And even when you spend all that money, you probably would have been better off buying a new one anyway, because it sounds better. So, old vacuum tube, if you like the glow and you're not concerned about the quality of what you're listening to, well, that's fine. But while you're at it, why don't you go out there and get yourself an 8-track tape player, just to complete the picture. And there's a huge difference between new state-of-the-art type of vacuum tube equipment. Rogue is one of our little jewels here that we have in Audible Elegance. And there's some very fine manufacturers of vacuum tubes. I'm not excluding anybody, but if you're talking really old stuff and people are asking stupid dollars for it, I mean, go back and look at my YouTube video on buying used equipment, because I get into the perils of even buying used solid state equipment. And you start wandering off into vacuum tubes, God help you. Some of the vacuum tube equipment, and mind you, I've owned Marantz Model 9s, which were really glorious, and they were very much state-of-the-art at its age. Even getting the proper tubes for them now is almost impossible, and they were designed around the use of the Mullard tubes from England. And you start putting other brands of tubes in there and that sort of thing, well, you're not going to get the performance that Saul Marantz came up with, and they're still a very lovely product, but my God, you're going to be paying a bloody fortune for these things, and it's not worth it. It's simply not worth it. So, if you happen to find something for $50 at a thrift shop or Goodwill, and you're willing to just play with it and not think that you've got a prized jewel and that you finally have found nirvana, fine, that's okay. But there are so many people out there haunting the shops or anything that's vacuum tube, and they waste no time at all in jacking the price up, So it's a multiplier of 6, 7, sometimes 15 to 20 times of what they paid for the thing. And if you think that, they've taken care of it, no, someone else has. Do you think it, came from, their father who just let them in, they inherited it? Well, maybe, because the number of stories I hear out there and some of the crap I see brought in, there's no way in hell. For those of us in the South, I live in Virginia, and one of the real demons down there is we constantly deal with a lot of humidity. And so you'll see even, something as simple as a reel-to-reel where the faceplate is all pitted. I've opened up amplifiers and things like that where the steel chassis are rusting, and God knows what's going on with the controls. So you have no idea the history of these products, what part of the world they've been in, where they've gone, where they could have been in Virginia or the deep south with a lot of humidity, and then gone out to Arizona, and then maybe Michigan, and then off to New York, and then finally some guy in Florida is pawning it off on you. I mean, you just don't know about this crap, and it's not a good idea. So I mean, if you find one real cheap and you're happy with the way it is, fine. But I'm seeing Dynaco stuff go for just ridiculous amounts of money. And folks, most of the Dynaco stuff were kits. These were built by somebody else. Was it built by somebody who really knew what they were doing? Or was it itchy and scratchy? Lafayette made a lot of kits. Heathkit obviously was a kit. But, you're not only talking about ancient parts, but you have no idea what the quality of the workmanship that went into even putting the kit together. I've built kits before. I built Haflers, enjoyed them. But even the kit products were meant for somebody who was trying to save some money, and so they didn't use first class or first-rate parts. They compromised in order to deliver a kit at a value price. So now you're starting off with buying something that's wasn't even built as first class. Now it's aged. God knows where it's been, and it's not a prize. Maybe a booby prize, but it's certainly not a prize. So, folks, be really careful. You're going to look at, old vacuum tube equipment, but Lord, it's... Look, I've bought old vacuum tube equipment, and what I'd like to buy are these antique radios from the 1920s and 30s, and I have a source for the very weird tubes they used. But, when I bring one of these things home, the first thing I do is I get out my extension cord. And I take that antique radio, and usually they're cathedrals or large floor standing units, and I put it out in the middle of the yard. I plug power cord to this thing into the extension cord, and I go into the house, and then I plug it in while it's turned on, watching to see whether this thing bursts into flames or not. So, my advice, if you're going to be buying, weird, odd, vacuum tube stuff, is just be ready for this thing to lose its ass on you, because they'll do it. And I've had a couple radios burst into flames, and that's just the way it is. So unless you know what you're really doing and can inspect it before you hit the on switch, boy, oh boy, you're dealing with a real crapshoot.